Mike, I'm super excited for
I know
this
you are.
episode of 50 for 50 because we're talking about Huey Lewis and the news. And if there are few artists whose catalogs I know better than Huey Lewis and the news, but even
That is
I
that's crazy.
even I had to go and see what they have done since like 1991. Cuz
Jeez.
do you know that they put out an album during the pandemic?
Yeah. Call
Yeah.
weather.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not bad. I mean, it's nothing groundbreaking, but I know I just imagine they just had a bunch of stuff that they'd been working on and like, let's just put it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man.
Um, 1983 is the year that we're covering, and that is when Sports comes out. Though
Right.
I imagine most people actually probably think of the year 1984 when they think of this album.
Right. Yeah. Sports was it came out at the end of 83, maybe September,
September,
October.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. And it didn't really pick up until uh like it became successful over time as opposed to like becoming successful off the jump. So definitely people think of it more as like a 1984 record than a 1983 record.
In doing my research, the other thing that I kind of realized is like, I think people would also consider this maybe the prime or like the best year, but this is what this album is. It's actually the launching pad because Huey himself, after this album comes out, gets 3 number 1 singles with the record or with the album 4. And a lot of it is just the momentum that he had
Right.
created. And then he gets Power of Love, which is probably the most familiar song that people when people think of him.
Well,
But
yeah, I mean, just
but
to
it's
get the timeline right, though, Power of Love happened first, like immediately after Sports. So if it wasn't, excuse me, if it wasn't for Sports, Power of Love wouldn't have happened. And then, Four comes after that and kind of builds on that momentum.
yeah, they're like 85, 86 time
Yeah,
frame.
yeah,
But
yeah,
Sports is actually the jump off rather
yeah.
than what people believe to be like, oh, this is when he was at the apex. Like his apex is actually a few years after Sports, which I always find pretty interesting because when I think of this album, I think of like I don't know how many videos they made that were on MTV,
A lot.
but because they're all goofy and like comedic and stuff, and they're
Hmm.
very memorable. And I think if people think of an album, they probably think of this album when they think of Huey. Whereas for me, I think of the album that comes later. But this album is more famous because of the time frame, like 1983, 1984. Like those are giant years for pop culture.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of your your view on those two albums is just based on you were 7 in 1983, you were 10 in 1986, but 1984 and 1983 and 1984 are considered two of the best years for pop music ever. Obviously you've got Thriller, Purple Rain, and Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen and Tina Turner, and Lionel Richie and Cyndi Lauper and Madonna, and so on and so forth. So it's just this huge period where like MTV is broken out, and all of these artists are using the power of video for the first time, and people were very creative. So yeah, there's actually a book that a gentleman by the name of Michelangelo Matos put out a couple of years ago, which is about the year 1984 in music, and it's just so much stuff in those 12 months.
So we've done Lionel Richie in 1982. So
For
this is just
oh, that's right.
so this is 1983. So it's just 1 year later. Was Lionel our second episode?
Yeah, I think Lionel was our second episode.
And so, not much has changed from 1982 to 1983 as far as where we were in our lives. But I will tell
Nope.
you that my sports fandom kicks in
Not the album
hard.
Sports.
No, my actual sports fandom. Like when I think of the year 1983, I think of when I actually start remembering sports stuff because the 49ers, this is the 2 years after their first Super Bowl, and the year before their second Super Bowl. But I very clearly remember them losing a game. I think it's the NFC title game in '83. I remember the Giants. I don't really remember the Warriors until the following year. But like this is like, because you were mentioning like the difference in ages between 1983 and 1986. Like at least from a sports perspective, this is where I remember things really jumping off for me as far as my fandom. And for music, maybe not, but it's still very much influenced with what's in my dad's record collection.
Sure.
Which is why I know the first two Huey Lewis and the News albums fairly well because he had them on vinyl. And I don't even remember if he had sports on vinyl, but I remember those two albums very much so. So yeah, that's part of why
funny.
my fandom with Huey Lewis is as big as it was.
Very interesting. I think on both points, my sports fandom, I don't think kicked in for another couple of years after that. I want to say it was 87 when I really became a sports fan. But I do remember 84 in sports because in 1984 was the year I moved from New York to Michigan. And that was also the year the Tigers won the World Series. Which is really interesting because I moved from New York to Massachusetts in 2008, and the Celtics won the NBA championship. And I want to say, I don't think the Patriots won the Super Bowl. Red Sox might have won the World Series that year.
2007, the Red Sox won.
Okay, so they'd won the year before.
Yeah.
And then the Celtics won the NBA championship the year that I got there. So, I guess I moved to a secondary city. One of their sports teams wins a championship, whatever. But I remember like the 84 Tigers because Kirk Gibson was on that team. They had Alan Trammell. They had a couple of like career dudes there.
Chet Lemon in center field.
Right.
Yeah, Lance Parrish behind the plate. I remember that team, Darrell Evans. I remember that team fairly well because, and I'll tell you why, in 1984, the All-Star game is hosted in San Francisco. And I got to go.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And so, and here's another thing, and we're again tangent, but oh well, that's what we do. The Chicago Cubs in 1984 are a really good baseball team.
Okay.
When I come home from school every day, I turn it to WGN, and the Cubs, who only played day games back then, by the time I get home, the game's in like the 7th or the 8th inning, and I get to watch the end of it. Every single game, that they were playing at home. And so I know that Cubs team almost as well as I know that Giants team, just because when I got home, I was just watching baseball.
That's crazy, man. My knowledge of baseball kind of peters out probably around 2010, somewhere around there. But 80s and 90s, I was pretty hardcore into Major League Baseball, but I wouldn't have remembered like a Cubs team from 1984.
So the reason why sports matters, obviously the name of this album is Sports, but Huey Lewis and the News in the Bay Area, they are very much connected to the sports teams out here. If the 49ers make the playoffs, Huey Lewis and the News sings the national anthem for their home.
Right.
Like that's just how it's always been. And as we'll get to a little bit in this episode, but also in our top 5, San Francisco 49ers players sing background on 2 songs.
I hate that song.
On 2 songs.
2 songs. There's a second one.
So Hip to Be Square, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a second one on the Small World album called Walking with the Kid. And they're chanting the chorus in the background on that song.
Gotcha. So. Yeah. I mean, Huey, so I like my first experience with Huey Lewis and the News was the second album, Picture This. And Do You Believe in Love was a pretty big hit. And Huey Lewis, what constituted a good-looking human was different in the 80s than it is in 2026. Like, I just saw Marty Supreme, and like, I'm looking at Timothée Chalamet, and I'm like, he's a handsome person, but he's a kid. Like, he looks like he's 6.
Even though he's like 30 years old.
Right. Huey Lewis looked like a virile grown man, and he was, I always, even going back further to the sports connection, I think of him and like Jim Palmer,
Uh-huh.
kind of in the
They kind of look
same,
similar.
very like swarthy kind of manly looking dudes.
And we got to see Jim Palmer's underwear a lot in magazines back in the day.
Yeah, because he did those BVDs.
Or whatever. Yeah, whatever it was.
He did underwear, and this was not when dudes were wearing like boxers or boxer briefs. He was
Nope.
wearing tighty whities in your newspaper every day.
Just chest hair flowing out.
Yep.
Just hanging out.
Yep.
Different time. So the idea, it's so funny you talked about kind of like what, because he's I think part of why he popped off on MTV was because of his look as well. Like he looked
Yeah,
like
for
a
sure.
leading man in a
Yeah.
sense. Like you
Yeah,
could
he
have
looked like an actor.
you could have seen him in movies.
Yeah.
And he actually had the personality, but this dude's a hardcore musician, 100%. He's the man with the harmonica. So I'm glad, but that's why those videos were so fun though, is because he was just dialed in, playing everything up. He looked like he was supposed to be on television.
Huey Lewis had mad riz.
Yeah. Can we talk about that word for a second?
Sure.
When I hear that word, I swear people are talking about Ralph Tresvant.
They're talking about Ralph T.
And they're not. They're talking about, something else. The kids, man. And I'm like, oh, you guys know Ralph Tresvant? No, they don't know Ralph Tresvant.
Oh, you also know why they call Ralph T. Riz?
Why?
Because of Rizzo the Rat from the Muppets.
Oh, is that why?
Yep.
That's so wrong.
Teenage Ralph looked a little bit like Rizzo the Rat from the Muppets.
That's wrong, man. But that nickname works really well for him.
That is true.
All right, so let's talk about the year of 1983. I have some dates here that I want to present to you, and it just really takes me back because we're going to mention this first band a couple of different times, and it just mind-boggling that they're mentioned twice in this thing. But February 2nd, 1983, Menudo Mania comes to New York as 3,500 screaming girls crowd Kennedy Airport to catch a glimpse of Puerto Rican boy band Menudo, who are playing 6 sold-out shows at the Felt Forum.
Believe me when I tell you, my dude, back in those days, Menudo was like the Beatles.
Could those dudes sing? I know Ricky Martin was.
I mean, like Ricky Martin. There were a couple of dudes that came out of there, and they were all, I mean, back in those days, you had to actually be able to carry a tune to get into a boy band. But yeah, man, New York City. I mean, obviously, New York City has a very large Latino population. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. But yeah, Menudo was huge. Menudo was like Michael Jackson huge. They were humongous.
I just remember them on Silver Spoons. That's really my famous memory of Menudo, was them on Silver Spoons.
Yeah. And they were like, they were in all the teen magazines. And obviously Menudo was unique because the membership of Menudo kept changing. Because they kicked you out once you turned 16. But also, like right around this time, 83, 84, is when they start making records in English. Probably around the same time Ricky Martin and Robbie Rosa joined the group. And they had a couple of sort of minor hits in English, but as far as like the Puerto Rican population, the Hispanic population in the US, Menudo was like large.
I always got a kick out of the name of the group too, because and just the pronunciation, like my family would pronounce it menudo, because it's a soup. It's like a pozole soup. Right. So the name of the group being a pozole soup with tripe and pig's feet and stuff like that in it is hilarious to me.
I bet my grandmother has eaten menudo before. Yeah. That sounds like some stuff that she learned how to make back in the day and would sit and eat, and everybody else would be like, nah.
Yeah, like my mom, who is not Mexican, by the way, she's Japanese, but she learned how to make it. She would put pozole in it, or hominy, I guess. Hominy, sorry.
Okay.
But I don't think like traditional, they don't put the hominy. So it's literally just the soup base and the pig's feet and the tripe, the inner linings of cow stomach or whatever.
Right. Right. Tripe is cow stomach. Yes. Yeah.
What to be named after tripe, man.
Hey, whatever.
All right, February 13th. This is very memorable to me. Marvin Gaye performs the Star Spangled Banner before the 1983 NBA All-Star Game, which I believe was at the Forum in LA.
I believe so too. Best national anthem, I would say one of the best national anthems ever. Maybe Jimi Hendrix's ranks above it for me, but it was just so cool. And Marvin caught a lot of crap for that too, because he did it to basically the sexual healing arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
He was also like, go look at that video again. My man was on cloud 12.
On one of his albums, they had that as a track, from what I remember.
I think one of his like greatest hits records.
Yeah.
They put it on there. Yeah.
Yeah. My dad always told me that was the best one ever. And then when Whitney's came out in 91, that's what they would compare it to. Was it better than Marvin's, the
Apples and oranges.
Yeah. Whitney pre-recorded hers too, didn't she?
I believe she did pre-record hers.
Okay. February 23rd, the 25th annual Grammys, hosted by John Denver. Toto wins both Album of the Year and Record of the Year, while Willie Nelson's Always on My Mind wins Song of the Year. Men at Work win Best New Artist.
Yep. Sounds very 1982.
Yeah. February 26th, Michael Jackson's Thriller hits #1 on the US charts, the first of 37 non-consecutive weeks. It would spend on the way to becoming the biggest selling album of all time.
A lot of Mike in 83.
I mean, it even thinking back, because there's going to be another Michael milestone coming up in 83. Like, we're not doing Thriller. We did the Lionel Richie album, but it's only because we're going to do 2 Michael albums. We did a Janet album. We're doing a Jackson's album. And it's almost like Thriller and Michael are always with us when we do this show.
Yeah. We're going to talk about Thriller a lot without actually talking about Thriller.
Okay. And then in March 2nd, compact discs go on sale in the United States. They had been released in Japan the previous October.
All right.
April 14th, David Bowie releases Let's Dance, the first album since parting ways with RCA Records and his 15th studio album overall. With its shift to mainstream dance rock, it would become Bowie's biggest commercial success at 10 million worldwide.
Great album.
There's a citation needed on that one, though. So I don't know.
Oh, about the sales? Yeah,
about the sales.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the other Michael piece to this. Actually, no, sorry. I'm mistaken. There are 3 Michael.
There got to be. It's 1983. It was Michael's year.
May 16th, the Motown 25 special airs on NBC, celebrating a quarter century of Motown records. Michael unveils his moonwalk move during the Billie Jean performance. Now, you have a story about how you watched this.
I can't believe you remember that. Yes. So there's sort of 2 parts to the story. One is that the Motown 25 special started at 8:00. My bedtime was 9:00. I'm 7 years old at this, 6 years old, not even 7 yet, at this time. And we had just gotten a VCR for the first time, like the day before. So I don't know how the hell a VCR works, but my family's like, go to bed at the time you're supposed to go to bed. We'll tape it for you. You can watch it after school tomorrow. Meanwhile, like, how am I supposed to go to bed when I can hear the TV in the other room and all of these, like, Diana Ross and Stevie Wonder and all these other people are performing? So my aunt actually snuck me out of bed, let me watch it live. And then the next day I lied and said I hadn't watched it before, and my grandmother was like, "We already know you watched it, but you can watch it again anyway." Uh, but
Like I imagine your family who was watching it, there's probably some oohs and ahs coming from them as well, or just singing along to songs or whatever. And so how would you even be able to resist?
resist. The one thing I remember is not an ooh and ah. It's. Did he get a nose job? That is how I found out what a nose job was. Watching Michael Jackson on Motown 25.
All right, here's our second Menudo fact here. June 18th and 19th, they make their second visit to New York. The band plays 4 shows at Madison Square Garden, and all 80,000 tickets sell out within 3 days of going on sale.
You got me getting ready to go. I'm gonna pull some Menudo out Apple Music when I get off this podcast.
What would be their main the track that is most familiar?
In the US, I mean, like a Cannonball maybe, or If You're Not Here. They had a couple of songs in English that were super popular. Yeah, I'm looking at the Menudo Essentials on Apple Music. Hold Me, I remember that had a video. Yeah, I mean, they had a couple. Again, they didn't record in English for long. I think it was like 2 albums, and they went back to like recording in Spanish. But them English joints, they on the video stations and on the TV radio stations in New York, they got played quite a bit.
Yeah, I guess if we run out of albums, get ready for Menudo 50
Menudo.
for 50.
We got more than enough to not have to think about doing a Menudo episode.
July 29th, Friday Night Videos is broadcast for the first time on NBC. What are your memories of Friday Night Videos?
My memories are that I didn't have cable, so Friday Night Videos is one of the ways that I watched videos. It's weird. I had to go to bed at 9 o'clock on weekdays, but I could stay up as late as I wanted on weekends. So I would stay up until like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and just watch TV. And back then I was watching SNL, even though no 7-year-old is going to get a single Saturday Night Live joke. And they would run Soul Train reruns at like 1 in the morning. Friday Night Videos came on, I believe, at 11:30. So it was a lot of late night TV at that time. But I watched Friday Night Videos quite a bit. And I think in the early 90s, they came out with Saturday morning videos after Saved by the Bell. And, there's a little cleaned up PG version of Friday Night Videos.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, by the way, because I did have MTV, I always saw Friday Night Videos as like a watered down version of
the ripoff of MTV.
Yeah. But now that I think about it, it was always frowned upon for me to watch a lot of MTV. Like not that I was forbidden to watch MTV, but it was just like some of these videos are like really stupid. Like,
yeah,
you can watch it, but it's like, don't sit here and just watch MTV all day.
Right.
And we'll talk about this in a second, but I wouldn't really, even though I had the channel, I wouldn't really watch it unless I was with like some older cousins who were really into it. Cause it just always was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't watch too much of this. But then what I realized is my dad would stay up, or actually he wouldn't stay up. What he would do is, going back to the VCR, I don't know if this was like a scheduled pocket of time or whatever, but he would record like 6 hours of like MTV and VH1 on the VHS. And so like I remember going back and like looking for video cassettes to like record over something, and then I just like, what is this Aretha Franklin video doing on this? On the, like, what is this? And it would just be like hours and hours and hours of VH1 or MTV.
We did that too. We just my mom would do this, just tape hours and hours of videos, and I guess watch them at night when there was nothing on TV.
I guess, like,
I would say like show them when like you had people over or whatever. But my mom never had people over, so I don't know
who didn't have MTV or who didn't see the new X, Y, and Z video.
Yeah.
If you think about it, it's kind of like recording songs off the radio in a sense, right? Like it,
Mhm.
like now you couldn't really do the radio or the boombox like passively. Like you kind of had to be like on it. Like, oh, I want to record this song, and you hear the beginning and you hit record. Like, and it's only 90 minutes of tape and 45 on each
Right.
side, so you couldn't just let the whole thing go to catch what
Right.
you wanted. On a VHS tape, you could just set it overnight and go to bed and wake
And
up and see what you
walk
had.
away.
Yeah.
Walk away.
So
Yep.
that was that was definitely a strategy back then. All right. August 20th, Rolling Stones signed a new $28 million contract with CBS Records, the largest recording contract in history up to this point.
I mean, it was Rolling Stones were the biggest rock band in the world probably at that point. I think that CBS probably thought that they would get a lot of money off of them, but then I think I don't think the albums that they put out did incredibly well. Um, so the Rolling Stones were already kind of like becoming much more of a touring band than
Yeah,
like
they're
a
like,
making hit
joke's on
records band.
you. You're going to pay
Yeah,
us for these albums, and we're just going to make all of our more money on
money on
touring. Yeah.
tour. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay, here's the memorable story for me. December 2nd, Michael Jackson's 14-minute music video for Thriller is premiered on MTV. Now, do you have a story of when you would have seen this?
I saw it in a shopping mall. Um, my aunt took me to in Brooklyn where I grew up. There's a local mall. It's still there called Kings Plaza, and we would go to Kings Plaza damn near every weekend because one of my aunts had to buy some clothes or whatever it was, and my aunt was in some clothing store just like trying stuff on, and they basically just parked me in front of the TV and I watched the entire Thriller video.
I was I may have mentioned this before, but I was at my cousin's house and he's like, "Hey, we're going to go to my friend's house." And I was like, "For what?" And he's like, "Don't worry about it. Jump on the top of my handlebars. I'm going to ride my dirt bike and I'm going to jump off curbs and scare the living daylights out of you while we do
All
this."
right.
And we get to somebody's place. We go to like the top floor of the apartment, and he's like, you know, "This is a special event." And I was like, I literally have no idea what we're here for. And then Thriller comes on, and back then they would actually schedule it. It would be on the schedule so that
Yeah.
people could, because there was a whole presentation of like, the video's 14 minutes long, so it's like half an hour segment, and you knew when it was coming on so that you could prepare and you could set your VCR and you could sit in front of the TV and you could watch Thriller.
Yeah, that's right. It was a cultural event.
Crazy.
Yeah. Can you imagine like a video being that kind of cultural event today?
Do, do
Particularly like a
you
15-minute horror movie.
do you remember the release of the Bad video?
Mhm.
Because they would not, they wouldn't really show the long version of the Bad video that often from what I remember.
Nah, the Bad video premiered on CBS. The day that the day the album came out, or the day before the album came out, might have been, they had a special on CBS. It's like Michael Jackson's back, blah 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 blah, and now we're gonna premiere the Bad video. And I didn't watch it that night, but I came home from school the next day, and my downstairs neighbors let me watch it. Um, so
I
yes.
only remember seeing the short version of that video for the longest time.
Oh no, I got the whole like, you ain't bad, you ain't nothing.
Like, I remember Wesley being in it, so
Right,
that was cool to see Wesley
right.
Snipes in it.
Yeah.
All right, December 25th, Marvin Gaye gives his father as a Christmas present an unlicensed Smith & Wesson 38 special caliber pistol so that Gaye could protect himself from intruders. A few months later, he would use it to shoot his son. I still do not understand this story. Like how, why?
I mean, so what seems like happened, and I'm trying to be very careful with the words I use here, is that Marvin's dad was unstable. Was just kind of mentally unstable, and had been for a long time. Marvin Jr., the singer Marvin, bought his dad the gun, because they were living in like Crenshaw. So it's not like they're in like a gated community or anything. They're like in the hood. Um, and what ended up happening on April 1st, 1984, uh, was actually deliberate on Marvin Jr.'s part. He was like, I want to die. I don't want to kill myself. So I'm going to piss my dad off and have him shoot me.
That like okay. No, I'm not saying I'm not passing judgment. This is so long ago, but
Yeah.
like who cared about this man? Like who was in this man's life to
I mean,
give
Marvin,
him advice or guidance or protection or any sort of emotional or physical protection? Like that's
I
the
mean,
part of the
isn't
story
that,
that I don't understand.
but that's what we said about Mike. That's what we say about Kanye. Like, that's
Yeah,
what people say about Britney.
Mike his some of his demise was people getting rich off of Mike.
Right.
Like,
Well,
that's
Marvin
not his
Gaye,
story.
yeah, Marvin Gaye was on a lot of drugs,
Yes.
basically. Was just, I mean, you know, was basically doing crack at this point. And I think that, the drug use made him very paranoid, made him delusional. And I basically think the people he was rolling with were doing crack or coke just like he was.
Yeah.
And maybe the people that weren't were just like, okay, this dude is our meal ticket, so we can't tell him nothing.
Yeah.
And they just kind of let him, take himself out. But this is, it wasn't just like concentrated period of time. I mean, Marvin Gaye had, allegedly been having issues with like his mental health and drugs for a decade prior to that. It just kind of, when sexual healing brought him back, he just kind of like went full bore into like doing the bad stuff again, and it, ultimately cost him his life.
We'll have more on this when we do our Marvin Gaye episode for
Yeah.
Here, My Dear, which you are sourced, by the way, in Wikipedia.
Am I really?
Yeah.
That is funny.
Your old, was it Pop Matters? Is that
Yeah, probably Pop Matters.
Yeah, you're sourced in
I think I'm
Wikipedia
sourced in
for the
another
review.
album that we're gonna do. I think I'm sourced for Continuum as well.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to Mayer and Neo. Those 2 years were very, very memorable for me, when we get to those albums.
By the
Uh,
way,
yeah.
again, we're gonna fucking sidebar. Neo has a greatest hits album that came out yesterday.
It's like, something about love songs or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw that. I was like, "Do I need this? No, because I have access
No,
to
I have
all of
all
these
these
albums."
songs. Yeah. Could have thrown one new song on there or
I
something.
know, I know. All right, let's talk more about Huey Lewis in the news. So a little bit of history. We won't dig too deep into the history. Huey Lewis, or as my dad used to call him, Huey Louie, uh, was that's not his real name, by the way.
That's right. That is correct.
Hugh Craig, Cregg. So Huey Lewis and keyboardist Sean Hopper were in a band in the early 70s called Clover. It was a jazz funk band. And they backed Elvis Costello on My Aim is True. So after Clover kind of dies, Huey forms Huey Lewis and the American Express. That was the original name for the band.
That's a copyright notice right there.
Yeah, I think so. And then the news, more generic. It flows a little better too. Huey Lewis
Yes,
and the
exactly.
news versus Huey Lewis and the American Express.
American Express.
Though, I mean, can you imagine the videos about those American Express videos? Don't leave home without it. Like
I-
don't leave home without your Huey Lewis tape.
That's right.
Okay. So the first album, Huey Lewis in the News, 1980, did not really make much of a dent. I went back and listened to it. There's no real standout on the album, but the second album is kind of like pre-sports in a sense.
Right. He's
This
teeing it up.
Yeah, so this first album from 1980, I remember that might be my favorite album art, by the way, of a
It
Huey
is
Lewis
pretty
album.
awesome album art.
But yeah, it doesn't, the second album is really where people start paying attention. So picture this: 1982 features the hit "Do You Believe in Love," which I'll tease this when we get to our top five. It didn't make my top five, but it
It
was
did make my
bubbling. It was
yeah,
bubbling in the top five.
yeah.
Um,
It's a good. It's a 6 or a 7 on the list for me.
I like "Working for a Living" on that album as well. Both that song, both those songs, "Working for a Living" and "Do You Believe in Love," could both be on sports. Like
Yeah,
that's how pre-sports they are.
yeah.
Um, and then obviously 1983 is when sports comes out. Now, an interesting thing about sports is the album was done in early 83, but the label Chrysalis was not stable in of itself. And so Huey held the tapes. He's like, "I'm not releasing this thing until you guys get your shit together." And then they got their shit together, but it's why it comes out in September versus earlier in that
Early in the
year.
year.
And then it was recorded in Berkeley, California, and San Francisco. So the roots are in the Bay Area, which I mentioned with the 49ers. Um,
Did I'm curious, did your pops only like Huey Lewis because it was like a was it like a Bay Area thing, or was he just jamming to him because he
that's actually pretty interesting because I imagine that they're being played out here in the Bay more than anywhere else until
yeah.
they launch off with sports. So they could have very well been a Bay Area band. I was talking to Crystal, my wife,
I was
and
about to say which Crystal.
yeah, yeah, not my though I did hang out with my former colleague Crystal the other day. We hadn't seen each other in like 10 years probably.
Oh, wow.
Um, so she was like overhearing me listening to Huey Lewis, and she's like, "Oh, is your next podcast on Huey Lewis?" And I was like, "Yep." And I was like, "Yep, I know this music, pretty much better than anything else." And she was like, "Oh, I think my dad knew Huey Lewis." I was like, "You waited until 5 years after we
New?
got married to give me that information?" So the
Like,
story,
new in person?
yeah. So the story goes that, so her family's from the East Coast, in like, in New York, and they came out to the Bay Area in the early 70s, I think, early to mid 70s, some point. They're musicians. He's a musician. So I think they came out here, just to they were hippies themselves, and so I would imagine that would be the time frame where they would have met. Because then, he's not a Bay Area guy. He still lives in New York today. But I was just
Okay.
like, you waited until right now to like, we could have set it up. Like, I could have, I could have went to Huey's house and chopped it up with him. Like, she's like,
Coulda
nah.
chilled.
She's like, they probably like that they don't know each other now, but they did at a point, or at least that was the story that maybe her pops told her. So
Told.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
Alright.
little fun factoid there. So you know what I love. Some of this is Jimmy Jam podcast related, but Jimmy Jam will always talk about the Lindrum, and I would be like, okay, is he talking about an actual drum or is he talking about a drum machine?
It's a drum machine.
And it's a drum machine, and I just did a Google search to see what it looks like. This thing looks like 1984 in a nutshell, man. like
What
like
does a Lin machine look like?
the knobs and it looks like an old Atari video game system, or like a ColecoVision is kind of like the what it looks, but obviously with more knobs and dials and stuff. But this album, Sports, famously used the Lindrum, to give that, that ticking precision of the music. So that was what I found out in my trivia. Look up in the
That
trivia.
makes sense. Yeah, I mean, the to me, the big difference between Sports and the rest of their albums is that Sports is danceable. Like, there's a
Mhm.
bunch of songs on there you could actually, like, that have, like, a little bit of funk to them and you can dance to them. And I think the drum machine is probably part of that.
There's a literal heartbeat on one of these songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So album was very much praised, and I think this is really like kind of like that rock pop, like the bar band rock to pop radio, like the mix and like the blending together was kind of like at like just perfection, right? Like just the perfect time for this kind of album and crossing over the way that it did.
Yeah.
So commercial performance, it did reach number 1 for 1 week on the Billboard 200 in 1984.
If I remember correctly, it was until that point the album that had taken the longest to travel to number 1 in history. I think Whitney ended up beating it like the next year or the year after that.
Okay.
But up until that point, I think it hit number 1 in like its 44th week or something like that.
The singles, no single on this album went number 1 on Billboard, but you had charting singles like Heart and Soul, I Want a New Drug, which we're going to talk about in a second because there's some nice trivia with that song.
Mm-hmm.
The Heart of Rock and Roll, If This Is It, If This Is It, the video in the rowboat?
Yes. Yes.
Oh man, I used to get such a kick out of that video. This
I was like,
Huey's comedic chops and like his sense of humor always. I was like, I just love this dude.
Yeah, I was like, is it that or is it Stuck With You? But Stuck With You, he's on an island.
Those were the two that I was trying to debate which one was the rowboat video.
And here's a fun fact. I Want a New Drug, the Heart of Rock and Roll, If This Is It, all peaked at number 6.
Oh, wow. Yep, you're right. You're right. And Heart and Soul was 8.
Yeah.
Do you have? I have 7 times platinum. I'm always a little uncertain about these record sales numbers that I find.
That's probably accurate. I'm not even sure if I can do. Let's take a look. Huey Lewis.
You got some systems and databases over there.
I can go into the yep, was certified 7 times platinum on, but it doesn't say when. But yes,
they did re-release. They did re-release it in 2013, remastered.
Yeah.
I bought a green vinyl not too long ago.
Oh wow.
So it was
pretty sure mine is not green. Oops. Oh well.
I want to say I bought it.
Nah, it's
would it have been the 40th anniversary? I think the 40th anniversary vinyl is when I bought mine, because I mean I've had versions of that album before, but I wanted to get the fancy one. So I wonder if it was. It probably, I'm guessing, because in 2013 for the 30th anniversary is when they remastered it. So I imagine maybe that's what helped take it to 7. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we said, this album is actually a jump off for him, because while this album, Sports, did not have a number 1 single, he would have 3 in a matter of 4 years. And I mean, We Are the World isn't technically his.
Doesn't count. He sings one line,
but
on
he
that
is
song.
on that song. But The Power of Love in 85, obviously from Back to the Future, and I do have some trivia about how that song was created. And then Stuck on You,
Stuck With You,
which was the lead.
Stuck on You's Lionel.
Yeah, Stuck on You's Lionel. And I think there's a movie called Stuck on You. The lead single from 4. And then Jacob's Ladder, also from 4, which was written by Bruce Hornsby.
Right. Yeah.
And then Hip to Be Square would be number 3. It didn't actually get to number 1. So again, the jump off when it comes to like his notoriety. All right, let's do our Grammy redux here.
Okay.
Now there's nothing from as far as like the big awards, there's nothing from sports. Actually, no, there is.
Yeah,
1985.
they were nominated for album of the year.
Were they album of the year? I have record of the
I
year
think, or
for
record
Heart
of
of
the
Rock.
year,
For
maybe.
Heart of Rock and
Yeah.
Roll, they were nominated.
Okay.
Here are the nominees: Heart of Rock and Roll, Huey Lewis and the News; Hard Habit to Break, Chicago; Girls Just Want to Have Fun, Cyndi Lauper; Dancing in the Dark, Bruce Springsteen. By the way, Dancing in the Dark create the Carlton?
Yes. Alfonso said that he got the Carlton from that video.
I heard gosh, what did I was listening to something and they mentioned Dancing in the Dark, and then they were mentioning, oh, I know what it was. There was a Rewatchables podcast about Ace Ventura, which Courtney Cox was in.
Courtney
And so
Cox,
then
yeah.
they talked about the Courtney Cox video of Dancing in the Dark, and I started to, just like, your brain goes, and I was like envisioning that video, and I was like, wait a second. Bruce Springsteen, did they do the Carlton dance in that video?
Yeah. She's doing a Carlton.
All right. And then What's Love Got to Do with It? Tina Turner. Those were the nominees.
All right. Tina won. And I think the right song won of those five. I mean, on the record, I do not like The Heart of Rock and Roll. That is probably one of my least favorite Huey Lewis songs. But, that's a very 1984 list.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all perfectly fine. But yeah, of those five, I feel like Tina deservedly won that award. If not Tina, I would have given it to Cyndi Lauper.
So 1986, record of the year again. Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen. The Boys of Summer, Don Henley. Money for Nothing, Dire Straits. Power of Love, Huey Lewis and the News. And the winner, We Are the World.
I mean, We Are the World is probably the weakest song of that bunch. I would probably give Huey that one. I mean, I am, first of all, Back to the Future is one of my favorite movies of all time.
I just saw it. There was a gosh, how many? So 1985. So it was last year. Yeah, last year was a 40 year, and it came back to the theaters. Crystal and I took the kids, and I hadn't seen it. I'd seen the movie a bunch of times, but going back to watch it in the theater is just a cool experience.
Nice.
And so we did that, and Huey's in that movie as well.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yeah, that's such a classic movie and a classic song. Perfect match of song and movie too.
Which it's hilarious because there was like no rhyme or reason for that song being in the movie. Like, and I'll talk about it in a second. Actually, let's talk about it right now.
Okay.
The Power of Love. So Steven Spielberg, Robert Zemeckis, and Bob Gale, they just wanted a Huey Lewis song because in the movie, Marty McFly is a Huey Lewis fan. So they're like, he's a Huey Lewis fan. We want a Huey Lewis song. So Huey was like, I don't know how to write a song for a movie, for one. And I don't want to write a song called Back to the Future. And they're like, we don't care what the song is called. We just want
to put it in the movie.
We're just going to put it in the movie, and we want it from you. That's it.
Yeah.
And Huey Lewis said, okay, I will just send you guys the next thing that I write, which is the powerhouse that becomes Power of Love. He's like, no biggie. I'm just here's what I'm working on. Boom.
Which isn't even the best Huey Lewis movie song story of all time, because you got to talk about I Want a New Drug and Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm. And which we will. We will talk about that in a second.
All right.
So Huey, I guess Huey was listening to something that somebody had sent him. He goes on a jog. He's got his Walkman. And as he's running, now this might be legend. Who knows if this is true? But as he's like going for a jog, like he's listening to these chords from a guitarist, and he's like, "Oh, I have the lyrics to Power of Love in my brain as I'm jogging." Do you think he did a Jay-Z and just went off the top?
Off the dome, up the dome. I don't think so, man. I don't think so. It's probably lyrics written down somewhere.
So, you know, these guys who are making this movie, and they're begging Huey for this song, and Huey finally gives them something, and they're like, it's not upbeat enough. We need it more upbeat. And Huey, like, damn it, you just said. So, anyways, the saxophonist. Now, you probably know who this person is. Johnny Colla, Colla.
I think that's the guy who plays the sax in Huey Lewis in the News.
Okay, so he is their saxophonist. Yeah. Okay, so he actually fixed whatever the problem that Robert Zemeckis had by adding the 3-chord major key intro that's like the memorable part of the song. Right. And so I guess that made Zemeckis happy. And what's funny is that Huey didn't think that the song necessarily fit the movie or like what the story was, because there are love stories in that movie from the parents. The whole idea is we need to get the parents back together, and right. Marty has a girlfriend, but like the theme of the movie isn't like a love story. It's like that's not right. the key element of the movie. So Huey's like, I don't know if this fits necessarily, but then he did actually go back and make a Back to the Future-ish song, which is the end credits for Back in Time.
Back in Time. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad he didn't write a song called My Mom Is Trying to Get With Me or something.
Yeah. There is a scene in that movie where, Biff is, doing some stuff against the lady's will there.
Yes.
That's probably the scene that does not age the best in that movie.
That is correct.
Okay. So he does have a cameo in this movie as well. He said the only way he would do it is if he was disguised and uncredited. Even in disguise, who didn't know that this was Huey Lewis in the News in 1985? Yeah, right. 1985.
It's like, all right, that's like, you'd always hear these stories about Michael Jackson going out and wearing disguises. Like the second you either hear his voice or see his nose, you know who it is.
I've been in the same building as Michael Jackson before, and this is not, we're not talking about a concert. I don't even know the story or why, but he showed up in full like outfit. Like, he was wearing something over himself at like a UFC event. This is in like the maybe the mid 2000s, like not that long before he passed away, actually. And so
I just love seeing everybody beat each other up.
Right. It was just so wild. And it's in Vegas. But like I was also at one where Dwayne Johnson was there. And there's like a famous meme where you see Dwayne Johnson just like clapping for one of the fights. And like I was at that show too. But yeah, like Michael was just like in this random garb. And like when I saw like, because I'm not sitting in Michael's seats, but I'm kind of like far away. And I like zoom my camera in, and I'm like, who is that dude who like is in like a blanket over his whole body? And then somebody had later said that they think that was Michael. Again, not proven, that it's possible legend. That's the story as I heard it. But I like to believe it was true. I like to believe that me and Mike were hanging out and watching the same thing.
Entirely possible.
All right. So obviously Huey plays the judge in the Battle of the Bands audition where Marty's band is playing. Is he playing The Power of Love?
Or is he playing Power of Love?
Okay. And Huey says, "Thanks, fellas. I'm just afraid you're too darn loud." Little fun line there. And so this was their first number one. The song's released before the movie, so the movie actually gets a little bit of marketing from this song, because it's like, oh wow, new Huey Lewis song attached to this movie. Michael J. Fox is in it. How much more 1985 can you get for a movie?
Not much more.
And Robert Zemeckis said the song's success. He credits the song's success with building like a pre-awareness for the film. And then the song was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Song, which loses to
Lionel Richie.
Lionel Richie, Say You, Say Me.
Here he is again.
To see how this works, man.
Yep.
So this song, Huey did not make crazy bank from this song, by the way. So
Power of Love.
yes, so he said that he signed a flat rate deal for the song's use in the film and soundtrack, and it didn't, and it became like he made less money than he would have off of his own albums. And the song wasn't even allowed to be on one of his albums until it was on 4 as a bonus track on some of the versions. Like, I remember like not being able to like find this song. Like, how could I, I guess maybe it was available on like a vinyl single or something.
I mean, it probably would have been. I mean, maybe it was on the Back to the Future soundtrack.
Yeah, but who's buying that?
Exactly. You're basically. I mean, it's one of those things where like the record company wants you to spend the price of an album on essentially 1 or 2 good songs.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, you mentioned I Want a New Drug. So Huey Lewis sued Ray Parker Jr. over the Ghostbusters theme, claimed it was a ripoff of the I Want a New Drug bass line, and then they settled out of court. Now, this lawsuit is so interesting to me because there are so many songs pre I Want a New Drug that sound like I Want a New Drug.
Drug?
And one of them, there's a song called let's see, do I have it here? Oh, Pop Music by M from 1979.
Yeah. Yeah. That never even occurred to me, but you are correct.
There's another song that I can't remember the name of that I've actually heard someone play and go like, how did Huey just not jack this song for I Want a New Drug? I couldn't
Right.
I couldn't remember the name, so I couldn't find it for this research. But okay, so in a 2004 interview with Premiere, the producers of the film admitted that they used, for this is the Ghostbusters, by the way, they used I Want a New Drug as a temporary background track during editing. So Huey declined to write the Ghostbusters song, and then they gave whatever Huey so they gave I Want a New Drug to Ray Parker Jr. as a reference for what they wanted for Ghostbusters.
Right.
And then so like I don't has Ray, I mean Ray has talked about this a lot because Ray actually gets some payback on this when Huey goes on Behind the Music and blabs when he's not supposed to blab.
And he was like, we signed an NDA, dog.
So what has Ray admitted, or what has he said about the creation of this song?
I mean, I don't think he said much. I think he's tried to like slick talk it. What it sounds like happened is exactly what you said. They were using Huey's music as like a reference. They reached out to him to license the song. Huey was like, no. And then they went to Ray and they were like, make a song that sounds like this song. Ray made the song, didn't take too many steps to make the song sound much different, because you can pretty much play Ghostbusters and I Want a New Drug on top of one another, like they're identical. Huey's lawyers caught it and were like, hey, you owe us. And then, Huey made the mistake of running his mouth when he'd signed an NDA. And, I mean,
he's like, statute of limitations. Whoops. Nope.
Sorry, bro. But yeah, I mean, you can't listen to Ghostbusters and not be like, okay, you are very clearly ripping off this record that just came out.
Yeah. So supposedly Huey got rumored $5 million from this lawsuit, or from the settlement, sorry. But then, as we said, in 2001,
give some of that shit back.
Yeah, I wonder how much. I wonder if he had to give back more. Could you give back
that
more?
would, I mean, that's dependent on the judge.
So Behind the Music 2001, during that show, or that interview for that show, Huey said The offensive part was not so much that Ray Parker Jr. had ripped this song off. They wanted our wave and they wanted to buy it. So Ray Parker Jr. immediately sued Huey for breaching their confidentiality. Parker claimed the comments caused him emotional distress and violated the original contract. And
Girl,
as a
please.
result, he says that he got a lot of money. That's all that he said. He hasn't, as far as I could tell, he hasn't really put a price on it, but he said he got a lot for that breach by Huey.
I mean, you could have just kept your mouth shut, man.
I wonder what behind the music is like. We'll give you $50 for this interview, and it costs him like,
and then it ends up costing him $5 million.
Yeah. All right, so the no skips ranking for Sports. Now, Sports is not a long album.
It's not. It's 9 songs. It is 9 songs. So I don't know. I'm giving it like a 7.
I think a 7 is strong. Now, I actually like 4 and Small World better than Sports, and I've listened to both of those albums more than Sports, and some of this is exactly what you said, which is by the time 86 is around, like I'm working the vinyl player and doing whatever I want with it.
Yeah.
So, I'm listening to those at that time because when 4 comes out, it's a pretty giant album. So I actually like both of those albums better, and I would say they're both more listenable or re-listenable. And I would probably say my no skips ranking is higher for those albums, but it's also because I know them so well, so much more than I know Sports. And we'll talk a little bit more about the songs that I still go back to, and that it kind of is like, and music is great with this, movies as well, where you can listen to something and you can like feel like a kid again, right? Like you kind of
it takes you right
remember,
back to where you were when you first heard it.
like I can envision, and my parents don't even live at this house anymore, but I can envision what was my dad's room for his stereo system. And, he had the giant speakers, and he had, the crazy stereo system, and the vinyl player, and then the CD player would come, and then the 2 tape decks and that whole thing, and it was fancy for back then. I don't know if it'd be fancy for now, but like I can go back in that room, and there was a point in that room where we didn't have a television. So you would literally go in there, put the albums on, and just chill out,
just sit there and listen to music,
and lay down in that room and listen to music. And then, we did get a TV in that room, and that's where I would set up my one of my video game systems before I was able to actually get a TV in my room and then put the video games in my bedroom. And I would just play video games and play records at the same time. And that's how I would spend, a couple hours every day after school or on the weekend. And I'd listen to so much music that way while playing video games.
Same, man. I mean, I did not have I didn't have a console until I was growing out of the house. But the room that our stereo was in was not the same room that the TV was in. And I would just, we had our record player, had a gigantic stack of records. We had, a dual disc, or not a dual disc, a dual cassette thing. And I would just, sit or lay there after school for an entire evening and just listen to music, like just sit and listen to albums and not do, maybe read and not do much else. It's crazy in 2026 to think that I spent so much time just doing that without the distractions that we have now.
I think I'd probably fall asleep now if I did that. Like if I didn't have my phone, if I didn't have a book, if I didn't have like, playing video games or whatever, and you just listen to music in a room and you're kind of just peaceful, I think I would fall asleep.
Fall asleep. This is what getting old is, ladies and
Well,
gentlemen.
well, you know what would happen though is what is that movie with Leo DiCaprio where they're all up in their dreams? Inception. What
Okay.
what would happen is I would be listening to this music and I would fall asleep and the music would be in my dream, you know, that would be a thing of my dream. All right, well, we're done with sports here. You know, in listening to all of those albums again, so well, we can tell this story to kind of end it. So sports comes out and four comes out, and Huey's getting a little bit of flack from critics because he is leaning into that like pop rock sound, and they're like, yeah, you know, the stuff could be a little bit more musical. You're the harmonica dude, like, and you're kind of leaning into this radio sound. So then they go back and they do Small World, and that was like an answer record to the critics, kind of.
Right.
Like, way more musical. Like, they're doing, like, barbershop quartet stuff on that
Yeah.
album, and I really love that album, by the way.
Small World is a good record.
But it doesn't sell nearly as well as Sports or 4, and it kind of sets him back a little bit because they wouldn't put out a new album for 3 years,
Right.
and by then, the sales are gone. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know what
Shit.
that I don't know what that album sold that,
I think Hard at Play went gold.
yeah. So then you get Hard at Play in '91. They don't put out another album until 10 years later.
Right. There was a covers album that they did, and then a greatest hits album, and then yeah, they just kind of like packed it in.
And then Plan B comes out in 2001. Soulsville, comes out in
Another covers album, I think.
2010. Yeah,
Yeah.
it covers, uh Ec what they went for a specific genre to in that album.
Soulsville?
Yeah,
They're probably. I'm going to assume without looking that it's probably like Stax covers or something like
that's
that.
what I was thinking of, Stax, and then Weather in 2020. But, you know, to go from like, 86 is the apex, because 4 is like he's very famous dude at this point. Small World, little bit of like a fall off, and then by 91, like, they're kinda out of it. Like, in the Bay Area, they're still big, but
They're not at
they're
the
not getting
center of
played
pop
on
music
MTV
anymore.
anymore.
Nah,
Like, the '90s kinda passes them by, and, you know, that's the story. So I
and that's
wonder if
how fickle everything is.
well, I wonder if he thinks that Small World was a mistake. He could have done that album at any point in his career, right? Like, that more musicality, a little bit more for the critics, like a little bit more of like a show me, like, we can really do this. But if you put out what would have been the sequel to 4, maybe he extends that run a little bit longer.
Maybe I don't know. Huey Lewis does not strike me as the kind of person who is just going to be like, I need to make a hit. I need to make a hit. I need to make a hit. I think he's like, I had my time, and then when my time was over, it was over, and that's cool. That's the way I view him in my mind's eye. I don't know if he's actually like that or not.
And he's got that inner ear thing
Yeah,
going on right
yeah.
now.
I
Which
gotta
I
I
know
gotta
his
talk to my man Dave Holmes, who interviewed him fairly recently.
Oh, did he on like a podcast?
Either for Esquire or for a podcast or something like that. I
What's
think it
he
was right
doing?
around the time We Are the World, right around the time the We Are the World doc came out.
What's
Um,
Huey up to?
he's chill. He's living on his ranch. He's, I think, somewhere in Texas, or maybe it's in California. California has ranches, but it's a ranch in the middle of nowhere, and he's just kind of like chilling.
Good for him, man.
Yeah,
All right, that's gonna wrap it up. 1983. We'll be
great
back.
year.
We'll be back next week. So for Mike, I'm Double G. See you when we see you. Peace out.
Later.